I just want to move to a important aspect of this conversation where I'm interested to know the impact of storytelling and learning. Right? Uh, why is it that uh, we read so much in school? Okay, and we are taught lots of formula, lots of subjects, and we don't seem to retain what we learned. So, if we have to retain what we learned, how can storytelling help? Maybe in history there's an interesting way to do storytelling. In geography there could be storytelling opportunities, but what do you do in a subject like math? Right, you can't story tell most of the time, is the myth that people have. So is there a way to actually use storytelling in enhancing learning?
Yeah, absolutely. There is, right? And this is one of my kind of topics that I really am passionate about. I've been working with some teachers from our son's school. In fact, one of my, not long term, but maybe this year goals is to create some sort of videos on storytelling techniques for education, and then just put it up there. Yeah, very much, right? So unfortunately, a lot of education is the chalk and talk variety, which is, you just go on a blackboard and, just keep talking. Um, so what are some ways in which, and yeah, you're right, math is a difficult one. It's not definitely, it's relatively easier in history, geography, also science. I think these are subjects where there are stories more naturally found. Math is more abstract, naturally. So but it still can be done, right? It still can be done. And so what are some of the ways, and let me kind of, put down some broad techniques. So make people feel multiple senses. That's one way to do it. Make them do activities and stuff around it. And three, make them care as to why this is important. So I would kind of, use these three to share some techniques. So make them feel, and feel is that we don't have just one sense, right, which is our eyes. We have multiple senses. So can you make people engage with something with multiple senses? And so in math itself, one example that comes to mind, which is, we don't actually, while we are engaging quote unquote with our eyes, we are actually engaging in math with our brain, because our eyes are seeing just symbols and numbers, right? But can we use pictures to make math easier, for example? And so this one example that I remember from a book called The Joy of X. There's this author called Steven Strogatz, and he's a, I think, NYT columnist, and he's a math prof and a geek. But he is amazing at his ability to make math more accessible. I didn't have a great relationship with math growing up, especially calculus, and I wish I had read somebody like him when I was younger. So I remember this example he used about the area of the circle, right? So how are we taught the area of the circle? We are not taught how. We just taught, this is it, pi r square, and that is the area of the circle. Please by heart this formula and then apply it now in sums. Now, can you explain why is it pi r square? So now he tries to do that in the book in a simple way by basically taking a circle. And I'll have to kind of put a link to that post or something, because it's difficult to visualize in an audio medium, and then dividing that into, let's say, four parts, right? Imagine them as four quarters. Now divide that further into more into 16, and then further into 32. Eventually what you'll be left with are many slices, like many thin, think of many thin pizza slices, right? What he then does is to try and combine those pizza slices into a form where, if you lay them, one slice uh, top down and one bottom up, and you lay them side by side, it broadly represents a rectangle. Very, very broadly. Of course, it's not exactly a rectangle, because there is some curvature on all, on the top and the bottom, but it broadly emerges like a rectangle. And in that rectangle, what you will find is that one side is r, because it's the radius, and the other side is pi r, which is the circumference ka half. So pi r into r, that's how it becomes pi r square. Like a area of a rectangle is very easy to demonstrate, right? And so that was one visual way in which he brought out the proof of of, yeah, of course, the real proof is done through calculus, and that gets too technical. But so he uses, in a way, visual metaphors to make that thing easier. So even math, I think it is possible. Make me feel has so many other elements, right? So make me feel about the person who came out with the formula or with the discovery, right? And there are some brilliant stories in science about the inventors, about Ramanujam's story. And you make suddenly you make me feel about Ramanujam. I want to know more about his math also. Make me feel about Newton, and a lot of these scientists were, at the end of the day, they were also having their squabbles and competitions and jealousies, and all of that is interesting. It gives you more color about that the discovery. I think that is one. Make me do, right, which is um, make me engage in civic activities, make me part of a role play where I'm trying to come up with a common policy for what will we do during a break period in school. Once you start debating with other people, you realize that it's not easy to pass policy. Surprisingly, people are not listening to everything I have to say. Instead of telling you that this is how policy is passed in parliament, you just try as five people coming up with a common, yeah, you realize it's not easy. So make me do in small ways in my own, yeah, and then can I therefore learn that, extrapolate that, and learn that now I realize it's not easy. Make me care, which is also, we hardly do that, which is that where do I learn and where do I use this? Can you give me five real life examples where I'm going to be using quadratic equations? I don't know whether it has any use. Maybe it has I'm sure it has some genuine use, right? So I think, and there are various, I think, once you kind of think into this, various ways in which you can make all of these elements interesting, by making people think, feel, do, and care.
Very nice. I really like the way you explained the pi r squared example. And in fact, in one of the ContraMinds podcasts itself, we have a professor from IIT Gandhinagar who teaches math through toys, Manish Jain.
Wow.
So it's an interesting episode that we have. So I think that'll be a good show notes for this, episode. And he really explains parabola through very interesting ways of doing it. So uh, that's
Fascinating.
that's a great example. So let me now come back to storytelling at work, right? Because one thing that I find is once you start to work, you become more rational. You become very very I would call it straight jacketed, and storytelling is a little bit loose, right? You